Hi, my name is Thomas Velvin. I am here today with my second interviewee. Please state your name and your profession.
Hi, this is Christina Agnew. I am an aeronautical engineer. I work as a consultant for the Air Force, and I also am a reservist Air Force officer in the United States Air Force.
All right, thank you for being here and helping me with this.
Absolutely.
Okay, so for the first question is, how have you handled the quarantine? So, for me, I'm a high school student, so I've had to adapt to this, going on Zoom meetings, doing online school, and I'm just wondering, just for your personal sake, how have you handled the quarantine?
Yeah, so just for context, I'm married and I have a young child who normally we have childcare for, and I think that was probably the biggest change in our daily lives when California went into the stay-at-home guidance. Essentially, we went from having childcare one Friday, and the next Monday we did not have childcare. And so the other kind of dynamic piece is that my husband is going to school right now, and so at the same time that he found out he would be doing classes at home and being, in online school, it kind of made for an interesting puzzle piece for us to solve. How are we going to kind of navigate taking care of a child? I have a full-time job and other responsibilities. He has a full-time job, and then we have a baby to take care of. So essentially, we kind of split the duties, but I had to take the majority of the childcare because of how much was on my husband's plate. Mm-hmm. And very, very fortunately, my work adapted quickly to kind of navigating how we're going to have people work from home. So I have essentially stayed home for the duration, although I am an essential worker, so I have the option to go in the office. But because I had the child, I stayed home, and I essentially did what I could virtually, and only went into the office on a few, exceptions mm-hmm. to take care of some things that I needed to. So, does that help give you kind of a feel for how I've handled it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
And kind of going off what you were saying, your work, the way you work has changed throughout this pandemic. Would mm-hmm. you say it was a smooth transition, a rough change? How was the process going from how you used to work and how you're now having to work now?
Yeah, it's significantly different. However, I would say that of all companies or work environments, mine adapted very quickly. So essentially, we got the guidance that we would not be coming into work. However, because I support the military folks still were going into the office. They kind of fall under a different category of society. And so what they did was they immediately established kind of like a battle rhythm of how we were going to still communicate and make sure that we were getting our work done. And, more or less it was like, hey, first thing Monday morning, everyone's going to get on a Zoom call, and we're going to have an hour-long meeting Wednesday at this time and Friday at this time. So we had 3 touch points throughout the week to essentially kind of get together as a group. Mm-hmm. It was very easy to set up. Overall, I just feel like the nature of my work and the people that I work with, we adapt really fast. And this is kind of, not something that threw us off too much. Mm-hmm. The only big hurdle to overcome for us was that we work in something called it's called a SCIF. It's Secure Classified Information Facility. Yeah. Essentially, it's like a safe. You go in and you have classified conversations. Well, you can't do that from home. So that was kind of the biggest thing, is that there's only so much work we can do from home. Some things require us to go in the office. One thing I found really, really interesting from a very senior level in our kind of area of work one of the ideas was we're going to have to adapt and figure out how we can move that kind of work into our homes and basically create safe zones in our homes where we can do the work that we otherwise would have done in the office. So I think that's actually pretty forward thinking, and it's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Next question. What have you learned about yourself while in quarantine? So for me, it's very important to stay organized. And of course, so what have you learned about yourself while in quarantine? For me, I've learned as a high school student and now going into college that it's important to stay organized with all your classwork. Especially in these Zoom meetings, it's important to keep yourself, I guess, loyal to doing your work, turning it on time, and just being focused in on that. So that's me. What have you learned about yourself on quarantine?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different things that I learned. The first being somewhat related to what you shared about being organized. I also found that I really needed to focus on whatever I was doing. So if I was doing work, I had to fit it in a very small pocket of time, and I couldn't afford to be distracted during that time. So, for example, when my son would go to bed at night, I'd usually have a couple hours that I had to, knock something out, and I had to just get it done. But it also taught me that I was able to get things done much faster than I probably would otherwise give myself. So it kind of taught me to be efficient, or that I can be efficient. The other thing is I'm very distracted, or can be very distracted. I guess this is related, but around, say social media or whatever it is around your home, especially spending time with my son. He's in a very critical time in his life. He's only a year and a half old. He needs my full attention. So it taught me that when I'm with him or I'm with whomever, just give them your full attention and take care of whatever else is distracting you later, or, allow yourself time to go do something else later when you're not with someone that deserves your full amount of time. And then lastly, I don't know that I necessarily learned this about myself for the first time, but I would say that I definitely have committed to fitness routine, which is something that's extremely important to me. But I think like most of us, we let that come and go. Sometimes when we have other priorities, and especially during a stressful situation, I always find that I need to work out to help relieve stress. And that's certainly been true during this time.
Yeah. Again, it's just like, what is there to do? I mean, you can only do so much during these times. You can do arts and crafts, watch movies and stuff, but exercising is a good way to just keep your mind and body moving. Like that's what I've been doing with all my running every week, right? Just getting yourself, still social distancing, of course, wearing a mask, but just getting out of the house and just trying to stay fit. This is a perfect time than ever. You have so much time, might as well just try something new. Right.
Yeah. And then once things are back to normal, you're probably an exception that you have running and you're extremely dedicated to it. But I'd say the average person, they let their fitness not be a priority, but it goes to show it really should be.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Next question. What are some attitudes or actions in the world right now that drive you crazy? So for me, that's people not taking social distancing seriously. So I'll be doing runs on the Greenbelt or in the roads, and you'll see groups of people of 6 to 10 just walking on a normal day as if the world is not telling you to social distance. So that kind of drives me crazy that they're not fully paying attention to the world around them. Is that the same for you, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have an example that comes to mind. I went to the post office the other day, and they have very clearly marked signs that say you need to wear a mask if you're going to be in the lobby, interacting with the postal worker. And there were, I think, 3 of us in the lobby. 2 of us were complying, and then there was a woman on her cell phone talking without a mask on, and the postal worker, was actually very kind and said, "Ma'am, you need to have a mask on. What do you need done today?" And she kind of just blew it off, and I thought that was disrespectful and just kind of selfish.
Yeah.
There's no reason to blatantly not just do what's asked of you during this time.
Yeah. It's so simple too. It just,
yeah.
As soon as you get by yourself, or once you're in your car, whatever, but once you're out in the public, it's so easy just to put a bandana on or just put something over your face just to do something about it.
Yeah, in fact, I think the other guy that was in the post office besides me, he was using like a tank top to cover his face or something, like an extra tank top. But it's fine. Whatever you have, just do it.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
What are some actions or attitudes in the world right now that inspire you or give you hope?
There's a lot. I would say I read a story that it was, I think, a nurse who was with a patient who had coronavirus, and this patient eventually went on a ventilator. However, this nurse essentially stayed with this patient throughout their stay and was talking to them even though the patient couldn't communicate back, and just sharing about themselves and just trying to be that person, because people that are suffering in the hospital don't have family there. And ultimately this patient was healed, and they, released from the hospital, and they told the nurse, thank you. Like, I heard all of that, and like, you were the person that was keeping me going, and you were all I had during that time. And it was just such a, inspirational story, because it shows the value of very just caring and loving personal relationship, even if it's not someone that you know. And I think that those are the heroes right now, the nurses and the respiratory therapists and all those with those suffering, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
There's another, I think, kind of story that inspires me. This is personal for me, that when I kind of felt like I had a good heads up that COVID-19 was going to be happening. I have a family member who's a doctor who followed this starting very early, and she kind of said, I think we should take this seriously. And I communicated that to my family in Ohio, but I don't think they quite understood it, the gravity of what was about to happen.
Wow.
But thankfully, the Ohio leadership, in particular, there's a woman named Amy Acton. I'm not sure if you've heard of her in the news, but essentially, I think Ohio only had maybe like 3 cases or 3 deaths, something of that. Like, it was like really, really low.
Yeah.
I think it was like 3 cases, and essentially Ohio Governor Mike DeWine and this woman who is kind of the leader for the Department of Health in Ohio, they shut down the state, and they shut down the schools. I think they were the first state to essentially shut down the public schools. And for me, that was reassuring, because it's my family, and of course I care about them a lot. But also it showed kind of really awesome leadership, because I think there are a lot of naysayers that, what are you doing? We don't even have that severe of a threat here. Why would you be shutting down? And then ultimately, I think Ohio, these numbers are just kind of off the top of my head, but I think Ohio ended up with 1,000 deaths thus far. Yeah. And then Michigan to the north actually had a terrible experience with many, many more. So just kind of leadership in the face of adversity is inspirational to me.
Yeah. So what are your personal thoughts on social distancing? I can kind of assume what it would be, but I know some people think that not really, it's fake almost, that like some people say they're exaggerating it on the news, saying they're dramatizing it more than it should be. Again, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's just right?
Yeah, I'm probably much more conservative. I do believe that the actions we've taken thus far as a whole have saved lives. And I think that, as you're alluding to, there are a lot of there's different theories out there. You might even call them conspiracy theories that, we're actually harming our immune systems or weakening ourselves. I think that that's very short-sighted, and perhaps the folks that are spreading that, aren't necessarily the experts. I think that's short-sighted. I think that social distancing is in place for a reason, and that we need to be respectful and do it.
Yeah, of course. So do you think some U.S. states are opening up their economy too early? Why or why not? So I was actually just talking with my grandmother, and she lives in Texas, and Texas has just recently, well, I don't know the exact situation of it right now, but they were talking about opening up their state again, right? So not just the needed businesses, right? Whether it's like the big grocery stores or whatever, but they're opening up like hair salons and movie theaters and stuff. So they're trying to make it back to normal. Do you think they're doing it too early? Do you think they're doing it at the right time? Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a little more complicated than like a black and white, is it too early or not? I think that overall, we as a nation haven't established enough testing, especially the antibody testing, to know the full effect on how many people have it or have had it. And so because of that, we don't have enough information to essentially open up the economy fully. There are other nations, I think South Korea, who have just done an incredible job comparably with how they're essentially navigating the testing piece. So I think that ideally we need to establish that, and then of course we need the economy open, and we'd want to move forward with that. So all in all, I think it's too early because of the testing, but from a perspective of does the economy need to open up? Absolutely. It's something we're going to have to do eventually.
Yeah. But it's just, when is it the right time? You never really know, right? You can't just wait till it's all over, just because that could take years for all we know. We don't know, right?
Right.
You have to eventually open it up. You can't all just stay in our houses, live like this for too long. It would get much worse than it could be. Yeah. Last question. What is your main source of getting essential items? So I know you have a baby at the house, and your husband is working as well. So are you the one that's going out getting groceries and stuff, or do you have someone that comes to the house just because of your situation, or what is, like, how do you guys work with that?
Yeah, we've been very creative. I have not gone to a grocery store. Michael has been the only one that has gone, because we just tried picking one person. And so he's the only one that's gone, but he's only gone, I think, 3 times in the past however many weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we have done a couple different things like delivery apps, Instacart, going to the grocery store. I think we did an Instacart through Costco. And then I also tapped into, there's a couple of resources where you can have restaurants that they have been buying, bulk supplies, because that's what they do, to make their food. And so they'll actually deliver you bulk items. So we have gotten even like a vegetable and fruit, like huge box from Arthur J's, which is a steakhouse, but that's one of the services they're doing right now. So we found that to be actually pretty cool. But yeah, I haven't actually gone to the store myself, which was a deliberate decision on our part, just to limit kind of the number of people that were out and about.
That makes sense.
And our family.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions I have.
Okay, cool.
Well, thank you for helping me with this, and I hope you and your family stay safe.
Okay, no problem. Good luck with your project.
Thank you so much.